Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Carlos López Estrada. I am a filmmaker born in Mexico City, living in LA. I've gone to do a lot of live action and animation and was lucky enough to be invited into the producing team of this wonderful film that you just saw, Remember Us. I am also very lucky today to be joined here by two people from the core filmmaking group of this movie, writer director Pablo Leon and producer Bryan Dimas. We are going to talk a little bit deeper about the making of this movie, the inspiration behind bringing it to life, and hopefully you'll get a little bit more of an inside scoop into how this movie came to be. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Bryan. Thank you, Pablo. So let's kick things off. Pablo, can you just tell us a little bit about the seed of this idea, how it entered into your mind, and why did you decide that an animated short was the right way to bring it into our lives?
Yeah. So when I came to the States, like virtually nobody knew that we had just gone through this horrible armed conflict that lasted so long in my country. I'm originally from Guatemala, but when I came to the States, I uh this was kind of like the bonding experience that I had with a friend of mine, Jonathan Rivas, who was also another one of the producers on this. And he's from El Salvador, and yeah, we kind of just bonded over that, wanting to talk about, the mostly ignored region of Latin America, which Central America, the scars that this conflict left, and just kind of trying to find like a little bit of hope out of that situation. Um, and this kind of stuff is not really taught in schools in Central America and in El Salvador. It's not really something that they talk about, and they don't teach it here either. So that was kind of like our main goal, was just to talk about this, like the historical memory around this. And but as to why animation, well, the easy question is like, that's what I know how to do. But no, it's there's something beautiful about animation, being able to like depict like memory and create visuals that are like really impactful, without kind of like relying on archival footage sometimes. Because I think sometimes depicting certain places and even feelings, that's not easily filmable. I don't know if that's a word, but and of course, it also provides anonymity to protect certain people, especially with these types of themes.
When you're talking about certain people that whose identities may need to be protected or just left undisclosed, can you tell us just a little bit about the stories that are featured in the short? And for people who don't know a lot about it, were these inspired by real cases? Were these compiled from different stories and turned into sort of uh, like fictional but
Hmm.
inspired by real life, or how exactly did the stories that we see come to be?
They're mostly combination of I did a small investigation when a long time ago, when this was going to be a graphic novel. I did a small investigation on my own, and I got to talk to a couple of people. It was a little bit hard because, rightfully, not a lot of people wanted to talk about this stuff, this period of time that they went through. Um, and so I kind of, but I did get enough where I was like, okay, I can start this. And eventually the project kind of got shelved, for a number of reasons. And then when I picked it up again, I did another prep, and a friend of mine was oh, and this happened unfortunately during the COVID pandemic. It just hit. So I couldn't really like travel at that point. But a friend of mine that was in El Salvador, she helped me set up this document where people could like either write or just send like audio messages.
Wow.
Which I don't mean, I don't know if people most people are aware, like Latinos really love sending audio texts. That's like a whole thing.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah. So we had this document set up and we had all these stories. And I think a lot of them felt similar. They had a lot of similarities to each other. So that's why we're not a documentary because it became like rather based off of the stories rather than it being. But there's one or two things that were I was like I left them in its entirely how they were told. So, um, but yeah, just kind of string them together from these stories that people finally were wanting to share.
Both of you, Pablo and Bryan, can you tell me a little bit about how long this process took from beginning to end? Like Pablo, from that moment where you were like, I should tell these stories until I guess today, how long has
Mhm.
it been?
So when it starts for me is around maybe 2016. That's when I think I took it more seriously. And what I wanted to do was this was meant to be a graphic novel, a comic, and it was supposed to cover like the Central American triangle, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and it was just sort of talking about the history of conflict that we had there because it's sort of unfortunately defined our existence, whether we like it or not. And I started like that, but when I pitched it to publishers, it didn't really bite. They felt it felt like a history book. So I kind of just put it away until pieces of the project kind of like started moving on their own. So I went back to this. I was like, okay, I can still make this as a film, kind of just taking the essence of this. And I condensed it to originally was like a 15 minute short. And there was just one artist, one storyboard artist, and me, Ernesto Alonso. And we just put the whole thing together, the storyboards. It's just storyboards, a bunch of sketches. I did the original voiceover for everything. It sounded horrible. And I brought that to Bryan at the time. And I was like, hey man, I've been working on something like this. I had talked to Bryan before, um, again, pre-COVID times about like just sort of like loosely talking about the war and like um other documentaries that we had liked. So I think we were just in the same event, and I was like, hey, I have this thing. Do you want to help me out with this? It's like I just brought a bunch of like loose papers and just was like, hey, look at this. And that's kind of where Bryan starts. I
Yeah.
think I think it's something like that, yeah.
Yeah, Bryan,
Yeah.
if you want to tell us a little bit about producing any film is difficult. Producing animation is particularly challenging. It takes a lot of time, energy, people, money. So, what was the journey? What was the journey from that moment when Pablo was like, "Hey, here's the thing that I care about,"
Yeah.
to today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I kind of got involved with the project around, in this, late summer 2022 when Pablo, brought up the project, him and Rebecca, we were at Pixelado, a festival in Mexico, and we, were just chatting and he brought up the project. And I was immediately interested because I'm half Mexican, half Salvadoran. So like, my dad in particular, is came to this country because of this conflict in that country, and it has affected, obviously his life, but the lives of our family over there as well. But funny enough too, like and Carlos, like it takes forever to make anything animated. And I work in animation full time, and you know typically when I work on short form projects, I'm a little bit more uh interested in live action, just because it's a different part of my brain. It gets to scratch and gets to, it's also like you can film something over a weekend and have like a 10-minute short, right? Well, for this we were aiming for longer than that, but animated. But um what to Pablo's strength, you know, on top of being the writer and director, he is also an art director as well. So I knew that this would be a little bit different to produce because creatively Pablo could lead a lot of it as well. So it was really just finding the right team and partners to surround Pablo with. Obviously, like the production team here, but you know, like bringing an editor to kind of help, you know, get the story in really good shape, and then an animation studio in Colombia that would be interested in working with us as well on this. So that's kind of like where I came in, and you know, and we were able to produce it in less than 2 years, you know, and finish it, you know, really starting up in the fall 2022 and finishing like spring 2024.
Wow. And now that you've gone through this journey, Pablo, like what has been the response? Like, I guess, what were you originally trying to accomplish by telling these stories? When you were, as you were putting the movie early on, what was sort of like that dream of like, I would love for someone to watch this and walk away with this new outlook, and I guess how has that matched the reception that you've seen? Because you know, the movie's been playing in festivals all around the world. It's gotten a few awards. It's definitely like reached a lot of people, and I'm just curious to see how that dialogue with the audience has
Mhm.
evolved for you.
I think the reception has been really good. And you know, the initial idea and initial goal has always been like about, first and most, was talking about the um the history of the armed conflict, and also this, in another layer, is also about remembering, having this memory, remembering that this happened so it doesn't happen again. It's a sentiment that's very easy to say, very hard to do. We have a history in Latin America of like doing this, cycling through violence a lot. And so that was kind of the I guess the noble approach to it. But otherwise, like, you know, the reception has been good. People have come up to us afterwards to tell us that, you know, they didn't know about this, and they're really grateful that now they're aware and they can look it up when they leave. Um, and some other people have told us that that it's sort of become a bridge to talk to their families about this event. Like maybe they're like first or second generation, and this has been sort of like what has sparked this curiosity between new generations, and it's become like a conversation starter. And that's huge. That's kind of like more than we could ever thought that we wanted. But yeah, like that's been pretty much like the good responses that we getting. So
That's amazing. And have a lot of people from El Salvador seen it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like a lot of people have seen it that are Salvadoran descent, and people that are from El Salvador as well. We, you know, we just had a screening recently with in person here in LA, where a lot of the community from the Salvadoran community were invited to the screening, and it was really special to kind of hear from people, um, you know, their reaction to it, and also like, you know, wanting to share with others as well so that they can kind of continue the conversation, because it has been more like, as Pablo's mentioning, the goal has been not to necessarily give a certain point of view of you know, of the story of what happened, but like really share this experience and hopefully starting
yeah.
this conversation. But yeah, you know, we've screened, like, been lucky to screen in film festivals in Central America. We're screening in Guatemala and in Pablo's home country. Um, at one of the festivals there, and also in festivals in South America and in Colombia, where our animation studio is based out of. Which, you know, for them, even though obviously they're based in a different country, they felt really interested in the story because it, you know, they also have a similar history of violence, right? And going
Mhm.
through uh a war that has torn apart a country, right? And they're still healing from, as well as, El Salvador and many countries in Central America. So it's really been interesting to hear the reactions, but also the reactions from people that aren't necessarily Latino because of other events happening in the world where, unfortunately war and violence tends to be something that happens in other places, but people feeling that connection in a way where like they don't feel alone as well in that experience.
Yeah. I think I think you hit it right there. We're not trying to impose ourselves as the absolute historical truth either. I think that would be insane. But it's rather just about sharing these intimate experiences of from people. Um, because, at the end of the day, talking about the past restores people's dignity. And that's kind of the, I guess, the overall bigger goal of this.
Hmm. I'm really happy that you did it. I'm very happy to be a small part of it. I'm very happy that so many people are getting to see the movie right now because yeah, sadly, these conversations never go out of style, and there's always very important reasons why we need to learn about history and the history of violence. And we continue hope that by putting these stories out, someone's mind or heart may change and they may be open to a new perspective. So really happy that this movie exists. Is there anything else that either of you would want to share with our audience before we let them go? Anything you think it's important for them to know about the film or its trajectory and, where we want it to go?
Um, I think for us it's just like the film is about trying to understand ourselves as Central Americans, our land, our complexities, you know, our parents and grandparents like choices and at least like trying to make sense out of that. And as an animated film, I know that normally we talk about show don't tell in animation. Um, but as most of you have seen and you guys have seen the film, this is a very talky, very heavy dialogue. But we the perspective that we were trying to that I was trying to approach is um that the audience should hear the stories of the people who are reconstructing their memory, and it's all coming from the heart. So I thought that was very important to um for the film to have. But otherwise, um we didn't set out to be all the way here, but I'm glad that we were getting a lot of eyes on this, and I hope more people can get to experience it as we keep moving forward,
Absolutely. And just to, add a little bit is, I've seen, obviously we've all seen the short many, many times, and
Yeah.
even watching it again recently with people and kind of sensing that emotion that they're connecting with it as well. What I'm also, as someone that works in obviously in animation and the entertainment industry, the line at the end with that the journalist says really about it's important to kind of tell our stories, and not necessarily um forget them or try to like forget them. Is I hope people also feel inspired to tell their own stories as well. No matter, how traumatic they may necessarily be. I think it's a process of healing for people, and it's also a process of, connecting with others and building that sense of community. So hopefully, I think that's one of the messages that I hope people take away after watching the short is like, it doesn't necessarily have to be animated, but could be live action. It could be a graphic novel. It could be poetry. It could be however people want to share their experience and story. I think it's really important for them to do that as well.
Well, thank you both so much, and thank you to the rest of the team that's not here, but I know has been working tirelessly to make this film available to all of us. So thank you. Thank you to our audience for watching the film and sticking around to learn a little bit more about it. Thank you for coming. And yeah, if you like it, please tell people you know about it. We want to try to get as many eyes on it as possible, and that's how these stories travel. So thank you again for coming to see it, and we will see you soon.
Thank
Remember
you.
us.
Thank you.